Looking at the word net neutrality on our screen right now, and I'm sure people are sort of glazing over.
We're talking here about what's known as net neutrality.
It's supposed to protect net neutrality.
What is net neutrality?
The concept of net neutrality is making big.
Net neutrality has become a hot topic in the news as of late. Why? Net neutrality affects everyone who uses the internet in the United States as well as many businesses. The concept is one that is multifaceted and especially relevant in today's society. The rising pertinence of this term raises a pressing question. What is net neutrality? We'll break it down for you. Net neutrality is the idea that internet service providers such as Verizon and Comcast, also known as ISPs, must treat all data on the internet equally. This means that the local area network and Wi-Fi connection speed that ISPs provide cannot be slowed or blocked based on the website or application that is being used by their consumers. In other words, ISPs cannot discriminate against other online sites. For the same reason, ISPs also cannot charge different prices based on the amount of bandwidth a website or application uses. Bandwidth is the amount of data a website requires to run properly, and some websites require more to run while others require less. For example, streaming videos uses much more bandwidth than doing a simple internet search. Although we use websites that require different amounts of bandwidth, we are charged one flat rate for our internet usage. That is because we have net neutrality, which requires equal treatment of every website and application. Net neutrality works in a similar way to flat rate shipping. Flat rate shipping is a standard rate charged to packages. It doesn't matter how much or how little content is in the package, each will be charged the same shipping price by the shipping company. Generally speaking, internet users and large websites such as Facebook, Netflix, and Google are for net neutrality, while ISPs are against net neutrality.
Without net neutrality, ISPs could charge internet companies extra for fast lanes or faster internet connection. ISPs could also charge internet users more to access certain websites according to the amounts of bandwidth they use. For example, they could charge internet users more to use Netflix each month than compared to other websites because video streaming services use a lot of bandwidth. In short, ISPs are against net neutrality because they are missing out on a lot of additional profit, and they are not being compensated for the large amounts of data being consumed. Many internet users are for net neutrality because of their use of popular websites such as Netflix, YouTube, and Facebook. Using these websites would cause those consumers to pay higher internet fees than before because they use more bandwidth. Likewise, websites are for net neutrality because it prohibits ISPs from charging them for faster internet connection. The biggest fear for many proponents of net neutrality is that ISPs would be incentivized to favor websites and applications that they directly profit from and potentially block their online competitors.
We have an example to look to when it comes to a reality without total net neutrality. In Portugal, cell phone data plans come in packages based on types of applications, such as social media, messaging, and music. However, consumers' internet usage beyond their cell phone plans are uninhibited and comply with the European Union's net neutrality standards. The issue here is that the mobile carriers are selecting certain applications to be included in the packages, which effectively means that all online companies are not treated equally.
While net neutrality has been a cause of worry since the early 2000s, more and more people have become concerned with the issue because of the increased influence of the internet in everyday life. As a result, politicians began to take a stance on the issue as well. In 2010, Obama made this statement regarding net neutrality.
Well, I'm a big believer in net neutrality. I campaigned on this. I continue to be a strong supporter of it. My FCC chairman, Julius Janikowski, has indicated that he shares the view that we've got to keep the internet open, that we don't want to create a bunch of gateways that prevent somebody who doesn't have a lot of money but has a good idea from being able to start their next YouTube or their next Google on the internet.
Throughout the 2000s and early 2010s, net neutrality was enforced through a set of regulations under a section of the Communications Act of 1934 called Title I. ISPs were classified as information services under Title I, and the Federal Communications Commission, also known as the FCC, enforced the ISPs to follow these regulations. ISPs thought that the regulations under Title I were unconstitutional. That is why in 2014, Verizon successfully sued the FCC. They argued that the FCC did not have enough authority to enforce the rules under Title I. The court ruled that the FCC had to reclassify ISPs under another set of regulations called Title II if it wanted enforceable net neutrality. Title II was originally intended to allow the FCC to regulate and inhibit monopolies from forming within the telephone industry. Currently, under the 2015 Obama-era decision to reclassify ISPs as common carriers of a communication service under Title II, the government has control of the activity of ISPs. The move to common carrier status meant that the FCC similarly had the ability to stop ISPs from blocking or tampering with data.
ISPs have spent a lot of time and money lobbying in Washington, D.C. to get rid of the regulations upholding net neutrality. In fact, Comcast spent $18 million lobbying in 2013, more than any other company other than Northrop Grumman, a defense contractor. With all the odds stacked against saving net neutrality, Title II was considered a huge win for internet users and online companies, and still remains the current set of regulations for net neutrality today. Unfortunately, to proponents of net neutrality, the existence of Title II may be short-lived. In May 2017, FCC Chairman Ajit Pai proposed repealing Title II. On PBS NewsHour, he argued that Title II disincentivizes ISPs.
And my concern is that by imposing those heavy-handed economic regulations on internet service providers, big and small, we could end up disincentivizing companies from wanting to build out internet access to a lot of parts of the country, low-income, urban, and rural areas, for example. And that, I think, is something that nobody would benefit from.
Essentially, the basis of Pai's argument is that the more heavily you regulate something, the less you get of it. He believes that the market should operate without the government influence overseeing ISPs. Since ISPs are held back from increasing profits, they're also held back from innovating and investing, which would benefit the American people. In late May 2017, Mozilla polled approximately 1,000 Americans on the issue of net neutrality. 76% of the participants supported net neutrality, and this support even crossed over party lines. 81% of the Democratic participants and 73% of the Republican participants support net neutrality. According to these numbers, Ajit Pai's proposal to repeal net neutrality is very unpopular among the American public.
Critics of Pai argue that the expense of repealing Title II will hurt online companies. They note that there will be an incentive for ISPs to favor websites and applications that they profit from, and slow the internet speeds of their competitors. Although Pai denies any evidence of this hypothetical situation occurring, there has been evidence of AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile illegally blocking Google Wallet on people's phones because it was a competitor for their joint mobile wallet, ISIS. Critics also note that there may be a conflict of interest in Pai's position because he was a former loyal for Verizon. In the eyes of the general American public, Pai's plan to remove the rules placed on internet only means increased prices to them. Pai has received personal attacks through hostile and even threatening emails and phone calls at his home and his wife's workplace. Hundreds of thousands of calls to Congress and the FCC have been placed to protest the proposal to repeal Title II. Online campaigns have also surfaced, with social media outlets becoming central forums for this debate. As expected, there is notable praise from conservative groups who argue that in decreasing regulations, Americans are being offered varying levels of service to choose from at different rates, which is something they believe to be beneficial. If the December 14th vote to repeal the Title II classification is successful, net neutrality will essentially end. In turn, the Federal Trade Commission will be responsible for monitoring and reprimanding violators, which will eliminate the preventative enforcement of internet directives.
Net neutrality remains a pertinent issue in contemporary America and both directly and indirectly impacts the lives of many, despite its seemingly abstract ramifications. One thing is evident: internet users and online companies will be greatly affected if Title II is repealed on December 14th. However, only time can tell to what degree ISPs in the United States will exert their newfound control.